Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. This is part 2 to my book haul. I thought I was going to have to wait until August for this because I had other plans, but all of a sudden I had an extra week in May that I didn't know I was going to have. So I was like, yay, I can do it now and it won't be so weird to wait like 2 months for the next one. So anyways, last time we started with the thrillers, so this time we're going to start with the horror. I have some young adult novels to show you. I finally got my hands on The Accident by Diana Ho. I've been wanting this one for a really long time and finally have nabbed a copy of it. So I'm very excited about that because I really wanted this cover. And then I got The Mall from Richie Kuzak. This is another point horror. So I don't really know that much about these, to be honest, other than the point horror books, and I'm trying to get all of them. But I know there's a lot. But this one looks very summery. It looks like it might take place at a summer camp or something. So I'm very excited about that. And then I didn't realize until my copy came in the mail, but these hands that are coming down in the mall, they're actually like doll hands or mannequin hands. So that's pretty cool and exciting. I like that. Then we have The Midnight Club by Christopher Pike. And I absolutely loved the TV show that came out on Netflix. I think it's really, really cool. I really like all that Mike Flanagan does. But this one, I'm sad to say, is actually not original. See how much bigger it is? So this is a reprinting, and for some reason, they made it bigger. I have a few R.L. Stine books like that too, and it drives me crazy. I hate that. So I'm probably gonna have to try and replace this one at one point. It doesn't fit the rest of my little itty bitty paperbacks and it bothers me. Then I have Mina and the Colt, which is the third and final book in the Mina series by Amy McCaw. So I've read the first one. I haven't read the second one because it's set on Halloween, and so I wanted to save it for October. But I went ahead and nabbed the third book in the installment. I just love the blue of the cover. I think it looks really cool. I love this cover. So the first one wasn't like my absolute favorite book or anything, but it was very cozy and it was very fun, and I did enjoy my time with it for the most part, so I just wanted to get the whole series. And my favorite part about this series is all the 90s vibes. It even has this little sticker right here that says "Be kind, rewind," which I love. I think that's so awesome. So this is about vampires. So it's kind of like a Buffy the Vampire type situation. So very fun, very nostalgic. Next, we have The Second Death of Edie and Violet Bond. So this one I discovered at Barnes & Noble. I didn't go there intending to buy this. I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard of this author. But I read the back and it sounded really good. So this is about a couple of teenage mediums, and that after their mother passed away, their father wanted to commit them to an asylum because he doesn't believe in all this junk. And so they run away from home and they become part of a traveling spiritualist group that communes with spirits. And so they enjoy doing that, but then one of the clients, something goes wrong, and the dark entity or spirit that supposedly killed their mother is now wreaking havoc on this new person that they're trying to help. And then there's also a person that is a serial killer that's knocking off the mediums one by one. So it sounds really fun. So I was happy to pick this up. Then we have Survive the Night by Danielle Vega. I actually read How to Survive Your Murder by her last year, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And so I was eager to pick up more things from her. The only thing I really know about it is it sounds like there's some kind of a rave or party down in the subway tunnels, but they get locked in there, and I don't know if that's like on purpose, if somebody purposely locked them down there, or if maybe there was some kind of like natural disaster or something. But somehow they get locked underground, and then there's a killer that's trying to pick them off one by one. So it sounds intriguing, sounds fun. I enjoy this author's writing style, so I'm excited to get to this one. Then, keeping with the nostalgic 90s vibes, we have a few books by Ivy Tholen. I haven't read anything by her yet. I do have the ebook version of Tastes Like Candy, but I haven't read it yet. But I went ahead and picked up the second one anyways, that just came out. So we have Tastes Like Candy, Tasteless, which I thought was really funny. So this is like a slasher at a carnival, and I just love these covers. They're so bright and 90s and neon, they're really fun. So I didn't expect it to be so chunky though, because the first Taste Like Candy is a novella. So Yeah, we'll see. Then we have Mallrats, and I think this is also a slasher, maybe, or maybe a serial killer, but it takes place at a mall. And it's funny because it says that there's a freakish killer in a baby doll mascot costume. So that sounds interesting and fun. So yeah, I don't think this is something you're supposed to take like super serious. It's just got those '90s slasher vibes. But I think it sounds fun. And again, it's so chunky though. Like I don't think a slasher really needs to be that long. But I don't know. We'll see. Oh, and I just have to say, I love that it's called Mallrats and it's spelled like mall. Like, I thought that was really funny. Then we have Permanent Damage, and I just absolutely adore this cover. So, this is about a teenage girl who can see ghosts, and apparently she's attacked one night by them, and they make it look like she's been cutting herself or maybe, other forms of self harm, and her parents have passed away, and so she's referred to this doctor that specializes in helping damaged teenagers. But anyways, it sounds like it should be a fun time. Hopefully I like this author's writing style since I now have like 4 of her books. But I just loved the covers. They were just so fun, and I love that they're all set in the '90s, and it just gives me summery vibes, so I just had to pick them up. Okay, next we have Tender Beasts. And I honestly don't remember what this is about, but if you've seen Delicious Monsters around, I don't know if it's a sequel or if it's just written by the same author. But either way, this is the new release by the author of Delicious Monsters. So if you've seen that book or have read that book, this is the next one. So I don't remember what this is about, but I'm assuming werewolves, just judging by the cover. But isn't this cover just amazing? I just love it. I haven't read Delicious Monsters yet, actually, but I really want to get to it soon, and so I just wanted to pick up the next one to have handy for when I do. Okay, now I have some middle grade books. So I had to pick up a few more Goosebumps. So we have Stay Out of the Basement. This was recommended by my husband. This is one of his favorites. So he was talking about it the other day, so I thought, hey, maybe I'll pick up a copy. It was only $2 on Pango, so. Also $2 on Pango was Ghost Beach. This one's not as good of a copy. The back has got all kinds of creases in it, so that's a shame, but I just love this cover. This little ghost that's over this beachy cemetery. I just love that. Although this one's a really cool cover too. So anyways, I just wanted to pick up a few more Goosebumps books. Then we have Closed for the Season by Mary Downing Hahn. And I just read my first Mary Downing Hahn a couple of months ago. It was called The 13th Cat, and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to pick some more up from this author. And plus it sounded really summery because this is about an abandoned amusement park called the Magic Forest. So there's these 2 boys, and they stumble across this abandoned amusement park, and apparently somebody had died there a long time ago, and so they wanted to do some sleuthing and see if they can figure out what happened to her and why she died and who killed her. So sounds fun. And then I got It Found Us by Lindsay Curry. And this is about a group of friends that travel to a cemetery that's supposedly haunted, and they start a game of hide and seek. But one of the little boys vanishes and they never find him. So it sounds really fun and intriguing. And I just love this cover. I thought it maybe had something to do with the circus or something because there's elephants on the cover, but there's nothing about elephants in the premise, so I don't know what that's about. Then I picked up Are You Afraid of the Dark book. This is a brand new release. It's not something from my childhood. It just barely came out, but I used to love that TV show on Nickelodeon, I believe it was, growing up, and I'm happy that they're starting to revamp the series. But anyway, so in this first installment, there's this couple of boys. One of them moves to like the creepy manor, and I guess they had tried to tear it down at one point, but different things kept going wrong, and so they ended up selling it to this family. But their demolition project awakened an evil spirit of this grandmother, and so he doesn't like one of the boys in his school, and they don't really get along. But then it turns out that they're the only 2 that can see the spirit, so they kind of band together to try and figure out if they can get her to go back to her grave or to cross over or whatever. And they describe her as a jawless old woman. So pretty fun. Okay, so now we're moving on to our adult horror. So the first two, I'm not really going to say much about because they've been everywhere, all over BookTube and all over Instagram and all over the internet. So I guarantee you've at least heard of these books, if not read them yourselves. So not much needs to be said. But I finally got myself a copy of My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. I'm not a big fan of Stephen Graham Jones. His writing style just doesn't really vibe with me. But I've heard a lot of people say that they felt the same way about Stephen Graham Jones, but they liked this book. So I'm giving it a try because everybody loves it and it's so beloved and talked about. And I guess the FOMO's finally getting to me. So I don't know. So I thought I'd pick it up. I don't know much about this. I know it's very meta. I know it's slasher-ish. I don't think it's an actual slasher. I think it's just about slashers, but I could be wrong. And then we have Tender is the Flesh. And this is a dystopian novel about what our world would be like if we were no longer able to eat animal meat and were forced to eat human meat. So I hear this is very gross and very disgusting. When I first heard the premise, I thought it sounded really cool and really intriguing, and I wanted to immediately pick it up. But then everybody kept talking about how gross and descriptive it was, and so it kind of put me off of it for a while because I don't know how intense this is actually going to get. So for a really, really long time, I kept dismissing it, but I think I'm finally ready to give this a shot. Okay, now we have The Mad Women's Ball by Victoria Moss, or Mass, I'm not really sure. And this is set in 19th century France. And this is about this asylum where women are often sent there not necessarily because they're actually mad, but because they're inconvenient. You know, they have a wife they want to get rid of, or they have a strong-willed daughter that they don't want to handle or deal with. So they put them in these asylums, and that is historically accurate. That did happen, which is very, very sad. But one of the girls that gets sent here is sent here because she can supposedly speak with spirits. And so her dad's like, well, to the nut house you go. And so they have this annual ball that they throw there. I don't know why an asylum would have a dance every year. That seems a little bit weird, but whatever. So one of the nurses apparently that works there, she sees this patient and she decides to help her escape. So that's really all I know about it. It's very short. I would say it's novella length. Yeah, it's like 205 pages is all. So I thought that sounded really intriguing. I always like historical horror. And then speaking of historical time settings, we have Sherlock Holmes and Dorian Gray. So this is a third in a series. The first one is Sherlock Holmes and Count Dracula, and then you have Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Jekyll. So this one is obviously about Dorian Gray. And I really like that because I myself write mashups, and so seeing another series that's also a mashup series was very fun and exciting, and I wanted to check it out. I haven't read anything in the series yet, but I do own the first three now, so I'm excited to get to it. This one sounds like it's going to take place at a circus, which is really fun. It's called the Circus of Amun-Ra, and so it's going to have like a lot of Egyptian folklore and a lot of Egyptian theology and stuff, so that's something I've always been interested in. Next, I have Now You're One of Us by by Asa Nonami. I don't know. I don't read Japanese, but you can see on the cover what it is for yourself. So this is written by a Japanese author, which is very fun. And this cover kind of grosses me out though, because I think it's a hair on a bar of soap. Ugh. So this is supposedly Rosemary's Baby meets Rebecca. So I am very intrigued by that immediately. So this is about a woman who marries this guy. It sounds like they had like a whirlwind romance. So they haven't known each other too long, but he lives with his like entire family. So there's like 8 or 9 of them living in this house. And so when she gets married, she's not only moving in with her new husband, but she's moving in with his family. And I don't know if they don't get along. I don't know if it's a situation where they don't like her and they're mean to her, or if maybe they're just creepy. I don't really know. but all I needed to know was that it was Rebecca Meets Rosemary's Baby. Honestly, that's really all I needed to know to pick this up. Then we have The Graveyard Shift by Maria Lewis, and I think this one might actually be a slasher as well. I'm not normally into slashers, but I think I'm slowly starting to get more and more interested in them, but it's not something I would normally gravitate towards, especially in book form. This one just struck my fancy, so I picked it up, but this is about a woman who works at a late night radio show, and somebody actually ends up getting murdered on air. And so now they're trying to figure out who the killer is, because apparently it's part of her audience, or it could be like somebody that comes on the show. She doesn't know. And then she starts getting threatening messages at work and at home. I don't know. Sounds fun. Sounds interesting. So I thought I'd give it a shot. Okay, so that's all the horror books that I have to talk about. So now I'm going to get back into some thrillers. Starting with the last book I actually picked up. This only came a couple days ago. And that is Ruth Ware's new book called One Perfect Couple. And I'm very excited for this because the last two Ruth Ware books I just haven't been interested in. They just didn't catch my attention. They didn't sound like something I would like. So I'm so excited to have a Ruth Ware book again that I actually want to read. So that's very exciting. I love this cover because the letters are like really smooth, but then the rest of it is textured. So it's pretty interesting. So there's been kind of a theme about reality TV shows. I read Everyone Is Watching, and that was really good, and it's about a reality TV show. And then I just picked up Game of Lies, and that's about a reality TV show, and then so is this one. So it must be some kind of theme. I also see a lot of horror books about old horror films, so there's a couple of themes going on for the horror and the thriller genres. But anyways, so this is about a reality TV show where these couples have to compete with other couples to see who can win the money at the end. But none of them could get along, of course, and there's drama, drama, drama. But it takes place on an island, and for some reason, all of the crew end up somewhere else, and then a storm creeps up, and so these couples are just stranded together on this island with no help and nobody else around. And then, of course, murder happens, and they're trying to figure out who done it and why. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of accusations thrown at each other and all this stuff, but anyways, it just sounds like a juicy, fun time, and I really enjoyed the reality TV aspect in the Heather Gutenkopf book Everyone Is Watching. So I don't know, I just think it sounds fun, and it sounds very summery, and I'm excited to read it. Next, I have Dollmaker by Amanda Stevens, and this sounds like it's a kidnapping story with a twist. So this woman lost her daughter 7 years ago, and she was never found. But she's in the French Quarter, and she goes to this little antique shop, and she sees a doll that looks exactly like her daughter, like down to the birthmark on her arm. So she's like, what the heck? Why does this doll look just like my daughter? And then the next day, the shopkeeper ends up dead. And so she's trying to figure out if somebody knows what happened to her daughter and if she's still alive. Then we have The Millhouse Murders. I'm not even going to attempt to say this author's name because I have no idea. It's Japanese, but this is the same author as the Decagon House Murders. And it says down here that it's a classic Japanese locked room mystery. That's really all I needed to know. Plus it's got this like creepy mask on it. So this one is actually, I think, a horror book, but oops, it ended up with the thrillers. So this is actually a haunted house book. But this is called The Family Plot by, I don't know if it's Sherry Priest or Cherie Priest, because one of my best friends growing up was named Cherie, and that's how she spells it, but I think it can also be Sherry. Yeah, I love me a haunted house book, so, I pick them up whenever I can. Okay, now we have The Final Scene by Steph Nelson, and this is another kidnapping story, but it's from the perspective of the girl that was kidnapped, and she's been held hostage in this house, I think, for like a decade or something. But it's unusual because instead of just being like locked in the basement or chained to the bed or whatever, the kidnapper wants her to reenact scenes from his life. So like all his childhood memories and stuff, she's supposed to reenact them, and if she doesn't get it right, then he'll kill her. So it sounds kind of weird, but really interesting and intriguing at the same time. So I don't know who owned this book previously, but it's kind of got a smell to it, but not necessarily bad smell, almost like perfume or something. So Anyways, I guess I didn't sort these very well because this one might be a horror too, but I'm not sure. It could just be supernatural suspense or supernatural thriller, but it looks like a thriller. So it's called The Devil and Mrs. Davenport by Paulette Kennedy. And I don't remember what this is about. I heard about it and I thought that sounds really good, and I immediately bought it on Amazon. But I don't remember what it's about. But I think a woman sees spirits and her husband thinks she's crazy, which I know that's kind of a tired trope, but I don't know. Somebody said something somewhere that made me interested in this book. So I don't know what else to tell you. I even read the back again in preparation for this video, and I still don't really know what it's about. So I guess look it up for yourself if you want to see a synopsis on it. I'm sorry. And then I picked up a couple of Frida McFadden books. So we have The Inmate, and this one says, as a new nurse practitioner at a maximum security prison, Brooke Sullivan is taught three crucial rules: treat all prisoners with respect, never reveal any personal information, never ever become too friendly with the inmates. But apparently she's already broken all those rules because apparently she becomes intimate with one of the prisoners. So he's like the maximum security prisoner and he's in there for life for all these grisly murders. But apparently it used to be her high school sweetheart. So I don't know, she sounds crazy, but we'll see. And then I picked up Do Not Disturb. I picked this up solely because it's supposedly supposed to be like Psycho, and I love Psycho. So I picked it up. That's all I know about it. I just kind of want to go into this one blind. Then we have The Truth Hurts by Rebecca Reed. And this is about a nanny who goes on vacation with this family, and she's supposed to be watching the kid during this vacation, but she gets fired like the second day they're there. And they're just like, hey, see ya. We're not going to pay you. We're not going to help you get home. You're on your own. Bye. And she's like, crap, well, I don't have any money. I don't have any way to get home. And so she ends up somehow falling in love with some random guy she meets. So she has this whirlwind romance with some random guy that she probably meets at the airport or something. And they end up getting married. She's head over heels in love, but then soon realizes that her husband perhaps is not who he says he is. So it sounds like it's going to have those Jane Eyre, Rebecca vibes, which I always love and find fascinating, and I could read this same trope over and over again. Now we have another pink book called How I'll Kill You by Ren DiStefano. And I actually already own the ebook of this book, but I'll be honest, I wanted a physical copy purely because the cover was amazing. I know that's so shallow and so lame, but I got the hardbook version, which is the one with like the three girls standing there, and it's okay. But like this cover is amazing. It's so pretty and so cute, and so I just had to have a copy of it, even though I already technically do. And to be honest, I really like physical copies over ebook copies, anyways, so I don't feel too badly about it. But anyways, this is about a pair of triplets, and apparently they are a bunch of man haters and they go around killing men. But one of the sisters ends up falling in love with one of the men that she's supposed to kill. Because I guess their MO is that they become romantically involved with these men. And once they're boyfriend and girlfriend, then they, unalive them. But she doesn't want to unalive this one because she really likes him. So it sounds really fun. Sounds like it's going to have a lot of drama. Okay, then we have another female serial killer book. This one's called You'd Look Better as a Ghost. So this is about a woman who kills men, and she immediately sees them as ghosts because that's what she's going to turn them into. And I don't know, it just sounds like a quirky, fun time. I love the neon green, it's very different. But it sounds like this is a female serial killer that's going to be blackmailed by perhaps another serial killer. Then we have One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole. And I just love this cover. It's very atmospheric and moody. And this is about a woman who actually has DID. And so she has, what do they call it? Dissociative identity disorder. So she ends up with this job as a caretaker for this old historic home, but then the conservation trust shows up one day and she doesn't like this intrusion into her life and into her world, but she has to deal with it. But then a storm arises and they all get trapped there. But one of the people that's part of this trust is somebody that she really, really dislikes because apparently he did something really bad to her in the past. And so she's not happy to be stuck in this house with him. But then he ends up dead. And of course, she has the biggest motive for killing him. So sounds like a fun time. Then we have She Left by Stacey Gray. And this is about a girl who goes to this party with her friends, and apparently they get in a fight, and she walks away with a huff and she's upset. But then the next morning, all of her friends that were at that party have been murdered. And she would have also been murdered had she stayed at that party. And so they call it the Memorial Day Massacre. So I guess I should have been reading this week since it was Memorial Day yesterday as I'm filming this. But oh well, opportunity passed. I guess I could hang on to it for a year, but I don't really know if I want to. But anyways, so then her and this group of other people end up going up to the house where this massacre took place because some journalist wants to do an expose on it, and he wants to interview people that were not involved with it, but she was at the party. So I don't know if some of the other people were also at the party earlier, or if they're family members of the deceased, or what the other group of people are. But anyways, they go up there and they get trapped there. So this is a locked room mystery, which is always a fun time. Then we have You Never Know by Connie Briscoe. I've never heard of this author, but when I read the back, it sounded like Jane Eyre, and I'm kind of a sucker for that. So plus it's about a woman who is deaf, and so I thought that was interesting. I haven't read any books about a deaf person, so it kind of reminds me of the movie Hush, if you've seen that. She is at home alone, and apparently they had a break-in, but she didn't hear anything because she didn't know where her cochlear implant was at the time. And so she doesn't really know after the fact that they've been robbed. And it has like the same trope as the other Jane Eyre retelling type books where she quickly marries this guy and then he ends up maybe not being what she thought. He's very sweet in the beginning, but then his uglier side takes place. So I don't know what that has to do with the break-in, but I don't know, I just like that trope, so I picked it up. Then the last thriller on my list is The Vacancy in Room 10 by Serafina Nova Glass. So this is about a woman who gets a phone call from her ex-husband, and he's frantic and he's guilt-ridden, and he confesses to some kind of crime in his past, which sounds like it could be a murder. And she's like, my ex-husband is a softie. He wouldn't hurt a fly. There's no way he could have done that. And then the next day, he himself ends up dead. And so now she's trying to figure out what this phone call was about and how this could have possibly been a true confession, because he just doesn't have that personality. And she, I guess, goes to this hotel room where he was living or staying at, and she's piecing together all of these clues and maybe discovering that her husband's not who she thought he was. Or ex-husband, I should say. Oh, no, wait. No, it is her husband. It's not an ex-husband. It is her husband. Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense, because I don't know why she would be so glowing about him if it was her ex, but anyways. So now I have 4 science fiction novels to share with you. The first one is sci-fi horror. This is called Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. I really enjoyed her last release, Dead Silence. And this one, it has to do with Eckhart-Reiser syndrome. They call it ERS, which is some kind of pandemic. And I don't know if this is the sequel to Dead Silence or if this is its own thing. I can't remember what they called the phenomenon from the first book, so I don't know if it's the same. I'm probably not making any sense. I feel like I'm babbling. But anyway, so I don't know if this is a standalone or if this is a sequel. So I guess I'll find out when I read it. But this is about a woman who is sent with a team to a different planet to run tests and experiments about this pandemic that happened. I don't know if it's a pandemic because it only killed like 39 people, but some kind of illness or sickness, and she's supposed to be doing tests on it. But when they get there, her team seems a lot more interested in the planet than doing their job, and they want to just go off and explore. And she's like, no guys, we have a job to do, But then their pilot ends up murdered, so now they couldn't even leave the planet if they wanted to. So I don't know, I've heard mixed reviews. Not a lot of people have been liking this one, but it does sound really good to me still. And I don't think a lot of people liked Dead Silence either, but I personally did like that one, so I'm hoping I'll like this better than what I've been hearing from other people. Then we have Out of the Dark by David Weber, and this one I don't know a ton about. I heard a glowing review from Rachel at the Shades of Orange, and she really loved it, so I just added it to my TBR because of her review of it. So I don't really know that much about it, but it sounds like in the future there's going to be a hegemony where more than one planet is involved in being part of this, homogenous civilization. And then they come across this planet with these so-called sentient beings called humans, but they're like, they're not very good. We don't really like this species. And there's another species that they've been trying to deal with. They're like carnivorous and not very nice. And so they don't really want to deal with either of these sentient beings, even though they are sentient. So they're kind of considering using the carnivorous, what do they call it? Shanghai, if I'm saying it right. They're considering using them against the humans, and they can just take each other out, and then they don't have to deal with them. So I don't know, it sounds fun. So the next two are part of a series, so I don't really know that much about these particular books because I have not read the series that they are part of yet. So we have Children of Memory by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I haven't read this. I wanted to pick up all three of them before I started the series, but I know it has to do with giant sentient spiders, so that's interesting. I think they were originally regular spiders, but then they got exposed to something and it made them sentient or something. I don't know. It sounds fun. I've heard a lot of praise for this trilogy, so I just thought I'd give it a shot. And then we have Kingdoms of Death by Christopher Racchio, and this has got like 6 books now, I think, in the series, but there's supposed to be 7 books. So I don't know if I'm gonna wait until the last book comes out and then try and just binge them all. I'm not really a binger. Like I couldn't read them back to back to back because they're very thick, very long, and I just, even with the regular series that aren't super long, I just don't like to read them back to back. So when I say binge them, I don't necessarily mean like read one after the other because I just don't like doing that. But I really don't like starting a series knowing that the next one's not out because if I have to wait a year for the next one, I might forget everything that happens and then end up having to reread it anyways. But now that there's 6 of them already out, I think I can go ahead and start the series now because it's going to take me a while to get to that last book anyways. And I just love this cover. It's very intriguing. I can't remember if I said, but this is the 4th one in the series. The first one is called Empire of Silence. And what intrigued me about this series is I'm a huge fan of the Ender's Game series. And if you know anything about that book or if you've seen the movie, you know that something happens at the end, and depending on how you view him, Ender could either be considered a hero or he can be considered a villain. And so I always thought that was really intriguing. And so the same thing is happening, not with this guy because he's like an alien, but there's another guy from the first book called Hadrian, and he has the same thing where they call him like the destroyer of worlds or something. And so some people vilify him and think he's evil, and other people praise him as a hero. And so I was just very intrigued to know what it is that he did that people feel this way about him. And I hear the first part of the series is just very character driven and learning about this guy who I guess is not particularly likable from what I hear. So I'm a little bit nervous because I'm not a very character driven person. I'm more of a plot driven person, if I'm being honest. I mean, I do still need to connect to the character, of course, in order to enjoy the book, but I feel like I'm more of a plot driven person than a character driven person. So, anyways, I'm hoping that I like this series because of that, but I hear the farther you get into it, the more it becomes more of a space opera, which is what I was hoping for. So we shall see. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fantasy tropes as well. So it's kind of like sci-fi and fantasy together, kind of like Star Wars, but it's very long, so it's kind of intimidating, but it sounds really good. So I just hope I like it. And there you have it, everyone. That's all the books that I bought in the first part of the year. So for like the last 6 months, which is a lot, I'll be honest. I probably need to scale back some, but I probably won't. So if you missed the first part with my first book haul video, I'll go ahead and link it at the end if you want to take a look at it. If you liked this video, please give it a like, give it a thumbs up. Let me know that you liked it. Please hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos and push the notification bell. And I will see you guys later. See ya.